Sort of view where we are. We're starting a whole new semester today, so it's a great day to have you here. And if you are not on our, if your email is not on our distribution list, who do we give that to? If you want to be on that, is that to Daniel or Debbie, or who's handling that?
You give it to me, I'll get it, I guess, to the, if it goes, I've been sending it to Elisa. In the past, I've sent it to Elisa.
Yeah,
So.
that'd be great. So
You want me to send it to you, Elisa? So that you can get it to him?
Yes, that'd be great. So if you're not on the email list, please give that to Debbie, and then we can send you things. This is a document that I will send to you. It's our semester with your daily reading. You want to have a reading schedule where we read through the book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon this spring. So today we're going to cover chapters 1 through 6 in just a moment. Next week, you'll see on the schedule, starting tomorrow, you'll do one chapter a day, Proverbs 7 through 12. And we'll do that through the months, basically this month and next month, a little bit into the middle of February. Then we're going to hit Ecclesiastes for a couple weeks. And then at the end of February, on the 27th, we're going to have the men meet with me and the women meet with Elisa. And we're going to do 8 weeks of Bible study on the book of Song of Solomon. And someone already asked me, can you teach the men how to be men? Yeah, I've had a chance for that, but we'll try. We'll do our very, very, very best. We'll hit all kinds of. What's that? We're gonna have a rough time on that. We're all pretty limpy. Mr. Dirksen, yeah. So anyway, we will have a great time with the men with women studying a very sensitive book of the Bible on relationships, and we're putting together a study guide for that kind of navigate us through those studies. We are scheduled, if you'd like to join us in April, to go down to the Grand Canyon. There's growing interest amongst our church family to go. There's some families that can we go already, and we go. We're interested in going. So it likely is looking like we're going to leave on a Wednesday after Easter, and we'll drive down to the Grand Canyon, camp that night. We're meeting the Bible college students from IBC, International Baptist College and Seminary. So they're bringing a whole bunch of kids to the rim, and we'll camp out at the rim. They've actually invited us to come, so I'm their guest speaker, and I'll address the group that night, and then that next morning we will hike. And there's 2 hikes. One is about 20 miles, so 10 miles down, 10 miles out. The other is about 9 miles. So with that in mind, we talked a little bit on Friday night. We probably should schedule a few hikes between now and then to work our way up to those large numbers. And it's unlike Colorado, because here we go up and then down. There you go down and then up. So we got to get a little bit in shape, and then we'll likely come back that Friday. So it's a short trip, but it is in the middle of the school week or your work week. So it may take a little more planning for you to be able to do it. And for some, it just won't happen. I understand. So middle school is very difficult to get away, but if you can, just put that in the calendars. We're inviting some of the students from the Mayans to come. So Hezekiah is excited about it. Invite some of his friends. And any other college career that you know on the Front Range that might be interested in coming, by all means, invite them as well. Okay, well, today we're going to start in Proverbs, chapter 1 through 6. And the way our class works, if this is new to you, is to read ahead for the Sunday. So if you're on the schedule, you would have read 1 through 6 of Proverbs. We ask, is there any Proverbs or any verses that were a blessing to you that you might want to share with the group? There's a little bit of sharing time with verses like that touch your heart. And then if you have any questions from a passage, then to ask about those, we'll try to answer your interpretive issues. I have written a 2-volume book on Proverbs. It hasn't come out. It will come out in about 2 weeks. But I did send it to most of you via email. So Plowing Through Proverbs, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So I printed the first 6 chapters. It's 127 pages of notes for the first 6 chapters. So it's about an 800-page commentary. So it's rather lengthy, but it might have some of those answers you're looking for as you study this. So I thought we would start here in these chapters this morning. And if you have a favorite proverb in this section, by all means share it. Probably some of you do. if you are a student of Proverbs. So first, any blessings, any favorite verses in chapters 1 through 6 of the book of Proverbs, and then we'll dive into it. Anything that jumps out?
Proverbs 3 for me jumps out. If you look at verse 4 to 6, it says, so shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. And then it keeps on to say, like, be wise in your own eyes, for the Lord imparts from evil. But just very significant reminder for the Christians to trust in the Lord with all of your heart. So, like, not half of it or like 25% of it, but all of it. That kind of means like surrendering the heart to surrender stuff too. So
it's good. So you'll see a lot of people write Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 as their favorite verse. Period. I mean, and why not trust the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. So trust is obviously the key word, where we're trusting God's impeccable qualities and care. And sometimes we try to figure life out. But here it says, and lean not, don't trust yourself. Don't lean into yourself to figure it all out, to have the understanding. It said, trust God, let him show you the path and the direction. And sometimes life just doesn't make any sense. It gets really confusing. If you're an athlete with an injury, typically, whether you're a Christian or not, you're saying, man, why did this happen? I don't get it. Here I was on this track, on this path, and now I'm either on crutches or whatever. And for me, I was tracking back when I played baseball in college. You couldn't be drafted until your junior year, and I think it's now you can draft after your sophomore year. So how it works out. I think they moved the year up. So I've tried out with the Phillies. They're following me. I just have to have a decent year, and probably would be signed right there to play a little baseball. And what happened is I didn't do my laundry very often in college. I lived in a dorm, kind of a baseball dorm, and I just didn't do laundry. So laundry always piled up on the floor, and I would wear the same sweatpants regularly. I mean, just for workouts. And they were a little crusty. I would admit they were a little dirty. And sure enough, above my right knee, I got a boil, an infected hair, just one hair infected just above the knee. And it was just before our season was to start. We'd gone down to Florida for spring training. We'd come back and we were geared up, to be Middle Atlantic Conference champions, and we were really fired up. And I had this infected hair, and I had to have it lanced. And it's really neat when they lance it, all the ooze and pus comes out. It's really, really gross, actually. And
I was thinking about food.
What happened, because of its location, I couldn't hardly walk. I was on crutches. It looked like I had an ACL problem, But it threw my whole season off. I lost my first 4 games. I've never lost 4 games in all my life. And everything went haywire. I'm saying, why is this happening to me? It just doesn't make any sense. And we try to figure life out. And sometimes we don't have an answer. We don't have an answer to that why question. Why did I get this health problem? Why do I have this problem? Why didn't this work out the way I thought it should have? And he got us saying, look, just back off and trust me. I've got this thing under control. I got a plan for you. And sometimes it goes through some of these, setbacks. And I'm so thankful for that. Because of my shoulder injury, my last year of college, I had made the international baseball team of athletes in action. And I was supposed to leave Pennsylvania, come out for a week or 2 of workout training here in the springs. And then we were going to go, my team, I always thought it was another team. It was a European team. And you play against national baseball teams and whatever baseball they have there, and then you preach. And I was so excited to go on that, but my shoulder had a rotator cuff tear. As a pitcher, that's curtains, And it didn't make any sense. Why did I have? Here's my love of my life, baseball. I had just been converted. Lord, why can't I go play baseball and do it well? And I had to cancel my plans. They still invited me to come and just join them, be on the roster and preach. But if I couldn't play baseball, I just said, I don't think I should do it. So I held off, and the pastor, our college career pastor, heard I wasn't going to be gone that summer. He said, would you be willing to work for the church? Would you like to work for the church? Be a child evangelist? And I said, well, why not? Sure. Okay, nothing else. Yeah, that sounds great. So they sent me to a camp in central PA, and that's where I met Elisa. And if I hadn't had that rotator cuff issue, I would have been in Europe playing baseball. I don't know if we would have ever met. But God stopped things here, didn't make any sense. I meet her, it makes perfect sense. So sometimes you have to wait just a little longer to see the thing unfold, okay? So great passage. Any other verses in these 6 chapters?
Yeah, if I can say one thing about that too. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. So sometimes there's direct things that are in the scriptures that tell you what you need to do. So sometimes it's opposite of what we want to do. And so to trust the Lord and do it His way, not our own way, I think is a good deal.
In this here, verse 6, it's like quoted it, in all thy ways, not just part of them, just in everything in life, acknowledge Him. You confess Him, you seek Him, you ask Him for His will to be revealed to you. And He gives you a promise. If you put Him first and you're seeking Him, He'll direct your paths. You won't get lost. You'll be right on target. So acknowledge Him, let Him lead and direct you. Any other verses in those first 6 chapters that you want to comment on? Okay, well, let's kind of talk to these chapters. I'm going to take maybe 1 or 2 themes that are very strong. So we have 3 sons. When they were in high school, we did a proverb a day, kept the devil away. So every morning before we sent them off to school, we would read a chapter or a portion of that day. So if it's like today's the 15th, we would have been reading Proverbs 15. If it's the 16th, we would have read out of the 16th chapter. 31 chapters, many months, 31 days. So we would send them off with a proverb. And there was 2 topics that seemed to just be our themes. One was drunkenness, don't be drunk. And then the other one was women, girls. And so our mantra was, girls are what? Bad. So every morning, guys, girls are bad, except your grandmother and your mother, future wife, other than daughter. But other than that, they're all bad. And that was the message we gave every day. And now if I had girls, my message would have been what? Boys are bad. So anyway, so we went through, and you'll see those themes just jump out. Someone said Proverbs is Christianity in overalls. And I like that. And what that means is these are just down to earth statements, just right where we live. And they give enormous wisdom for living in this world. And so very special. The book itself is divided into 7 units. So the preface is chapter 1, verses 1 through 7, but there's 7 units. And I make comment on those periodically as we work through the book. There's 3 larger parts. And the focus of the first part is instruction for children. The second section is instruction for youth, teens. The third section is for adult living. So Proverbs is written by God through Solomon and others' pens to help give wisdom to every person in every stage of life. So wherever we find ourselves, there's just so much help here. In 1 Kings 4:32, it said Solomon wrote 3,000 Proverbs. They weren't all inspired, but the 900 plus in this book were. So looking over 900 Proverbs, it's argued how you separate some of them. So you'll see some numbers floating around, but usually in the early 900s is accurate. The word proverb, the Hebrew word mazol, and it's just a word which usually is just a word meaning comparison, an analogy. So these proverbs are analogies where usually some point is made and then an analogy or comparison, a springboard from that word or phrase to teach an object lesson, a principle for life. You're going to see multiple authors. Solomon's the dominant author. 1:1, 10:1, 25:1, it tells you Solomon's writing. But you're going to see in chapter 30 that there are proverbs written by Agur and King Lemuel. Some people like to duck and dodge those new names and say, oh, they're just code names for Solomon. No, those are non-Jewish writers, likely people from Arabia, from the Far East, further east of Israel, who had been inspired by God to add to this collection. Of course, the book ends with a virtuous woman. So there's 22 verses at the end. It's an acrostic. It's unbelievable. So you have 22 verses. There's 22 Hebrew letters. So the first verse in the virtuous woman is the A in Hebrew, and then B, and right down the 22 letters to the last one being Tau. And so it's a very well-organized poem describing the ultimate woman. And sometimes you ladies will read that and say, man, who can be this lady? You know, this is way out of reach. It's an amazing section of scripture. And of course, Solomon is writing to his son, my son. You're going to see it repeated, my son or sons, over and over and over. So he's trying to teach those sons to be real man, to be the type of men they should be. And that father's teaching his sons what kind of woman you look for. So everything's driving to that last chapter. This is the kind of woman that you want to follow. And a lot of guys have no idea what to look for, and often girls have no idea what to look for in a partner for life. So just some neat stuff. There's all kinds of parallelism poetry. We might occasionally talk about synonymous parallelism and antithetical parallelism and blah, blah, blah. We'll draw some of those things out at some point. In chapter 1, the book in the preface gives you its fivefold purpose. So any of these points resonate with you, then this is your book. So he says here in verses 2 through 4 and 6, verse 6, he's written this for obtaining wisdom and discipline. He's written this for understanding words of insight. He's written this to acquire a disciplined and prudent life, give discernment, and just to create wisdom. And you can be wise beyond your age if you immerse yourself in this book. You say, wow, where did that person get all that wisdom? Well, for their age, they're really very discerning, wise people. This book can create that. One, if we just start there, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. So he has a very rich heritage. So just tell me one or two things you know about David. Okay, just help me out. Just a little bio sketch of David, what we have.
He was a man after God's own heart.
Right, it's quite a dad. It's stellar. He loves God. Not a perfect man, but he really is a man who loves the Lord. What else do you know about David? Anything else that jumps out?
He slayed Goliath.
He's got this Goliath story in his resume. That's pretty awesome. Dad, tell me that story again. Yeah, can you imagine? All right, another story or thought?
He went from like the lowest he could possibly be to the highest.
He's just a shepherd. He works out in the fields with dumb sheep, goats. I mean, so yeah, so here he is, just out there. He's a shepherd boy, and later he's the shepherd of the nation. Wow, that's quite a progression of thought. Right? Anything else about him? Definitely a warrior. How about musically? He's an incredible musician. So this guy is one of these. He was a Renaissance man before there was a Renaissance. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. He's so talented. He was a writer. He's a poet. He was a singer. He was a musician. He was a warrior, a fighter, a general. I mean, he just was an amazing guy. Now, what would you say his weaknesses were? What would you say his weaknesses were? What did I tell my boys? What's the weakness? Women. Okay. He has a lot of wives. He adds them one after another. Adds a lot of wives. So that's a problem. It should be. Hopefully, you see that as a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. Any other weakness that kind of jumps out? Yeah. Definitely some indiscretion with women, and of course Bathsheba, adultery. He murders her husband. It's a black guy for sure.
You know, with the people.
Yeah, he had some pride and slipped into some pride at times. So look at me, look what I've done. I've got him in trouble.
Terrible kids.
They have raunchy kids. Any of his boys that have a name that begin with letter A were total disasters. Total, and it tells you why he didn't discipline. Didn't take any time to correct them, just let them do their thing. And the child left himself, will bring his dad and mom to shame, of course. So yes, he wasn't perfect, but overall there's some major things. Of course, Solomon is going to follow some of the weaknesses. And that's how it often works. And so, for us in our family, my dad, I love my dad. He had some weaknesses. Alcohol was one of them. I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to go down that path. Other qualities about my dad, yeah, I'm gonna be like my dad. So there's some things you may pick out that, hey, that's admirable, and we'll follow, and other things I'm saying, I'm not gonna be like that. No way.
It also seems in scripture that, David did have many, many wives. He had 8 wives before Solomon was born. But anyway, they seem to be in different places. And then he had his place. So he just chose where he went. But if you think about that, then the influence of the father is missing to a large degree. And so, even in our country today, it amazes me because the role of a father has been minimized, but the role of a father is paramount in a family. And the idea of protection, the idea of leadership, the idea altogether, fathers are extremely important. And yet in our country today, they don't even have a say in some cases. The case of a lady who was married to a man in Texas. She wants to transition her young child from being, I think it's a boy, to a girl. And the father, by law, couldn't even step in and intervene. So, this is a very ungodly thing. And so I think that keeping your eyes, especially the guys, keeping your eyes on the fact that one day you may be leaving a family, and don't let anyone ever minimize that role. So.
If you don't have a good family or father, you have God as your heavenly Father, and that's what you've got. He's your go-to. He's a perfect father, and He's giving you the family that you have. My dad, he tried to kill me, and he tried to kill my mom. That's why she divorced him. So it's pretty ugly. We're talking ugly. But I have a heavenly Father who's perfect, loving, gracious, patient, and I can do life with Him. So okay, chapter 1, verse 5: a wise man will hear. Of course, wise woman, the same will be true. So there's stuff we're going to go through. Hopefully, we're going to listen to and learn. The key to the book you'll see in 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all this. You want to have knowledge, you want wisdom, you want to do life at its highest level. Then there's got to be respect for God, a fear of God, a reverence for God. So very powerful start in chapter 1 in the preface or preamble. Then you have the story here, the remainder of the chapter dealing with the temptation that this young man is facing, where people are inviting him to join them to do evil. And again and again and again, you're going to see through this book is you choose your friends very, very carefully. Verse 10: my son of sinners entice thee, consent thou not. Don't go with them. So looking back, when I had my terrible parts of my life, I was always with the wrong people. I was a wrong person, so I can't blame them. I was one of them, but I couldn't say no to enticements. I had a friend, his name was Joe, and we nicknamed him Slow Joe. He was not slow running. He was a world-class runner. He was on the Olympic track, so he was an absolute rocket. I wouldn't even say he was slow mentally. He was no dummy when it came to plotting evil. He was very good at devising evil. And he would ask me to do things, and we would do them, really stupid things. It's not good to cut, trees down corners of country roads. So when the bus comes around the corner, you slow down the bus so you don't have to be picked up to go to school, kind of thing. I'm not saying we did that regularly or at all. But with Joe, we were on the bus one time bus number 4, going to high school, 11th grade or 10th grade, and Joe says, "I don't want to go to school." But Joe, we're on the bus, we're going to school. "I don't want to go. Let's just hide. Let's just hide when the bus stops at the school." So we ducked down underneath the seats. We got to the school, public high school, we dropped off. And the bus driver didn't see us, wasn't paying attention, and noticed that we hadn't gotten off. We were in the back of the bus. No idea where we were going. So he dropped us off and off he goes. And I could tell by the shifting of gears and the direction it sounded that he went up to Highway 30 and then up this hill. And after that, I had no idea where he was leading. And, it didn't matter to us. We were gonna bag school together. It was Joe's idea, and I said, yeah, it's really stupid. But the guy finally stopped, turns the bus off, and we wait, which felt like a millennium until we thought he was far enough away. And I finally peeped my head above the little back seat of the bus. And the first thing I see is a cross. The guy's a pastor. I didn't know he was a pastor. And he's at church. He's at church. And the first thing I see is the cross. And my heart was broke. I mean, it smote me. I felt like, oh man, this is evil. What am I doing? And of course, every time I did something with slow Joe, we would get caught all the time. My neighbors would see, call my mom. Will wasn't in school today. We saw him walking, So it's really bad. So anyway, this part here is as soon as it's nice to join to do something stupid, just you have to say no. When we get into the next chapters, wisdom for children, big themes there in chapter 2. He's addressing his kids, and over he's going to say, listen to your dad, listen to your mom, listen as they give you the right instruction. And then the value systems being introduced in verse 4. If you seek us for silver and search us for her as for hid treasures. Over and over, he's sharing the word of God and your relationship to God is more valuable than anything else. But of course, we don't believe that in our flesh. We think, man, materialism it should be our God in pursuit, and this pleasure should be the first thing I should have, and I should seek it and push after it. When in reality, it's to seek God and His kingdom first. And that's the focus that Solomon is giving here in this earlier chapter of chapter 2. Chapter 3, we just hit. I think that huge text that Slavic brought to our attention is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Chapter 3, verse 5. You're going to see in verse 12, speaking of God and fathers, for whom the Lord loves, He corrects. And if you're not His child, He won't correct you in the same sense. Even as a father, the son whom He delights. So He does correct us when we start veering off the trail. And He wants to get our attention. He doesn't want us to destroy ourselves. So He does intercept our lives with correction at times. There's different ways He can do that. Chapter 4, I just want to hit a verse that, that I reflect on, verse 23, right? Roll over the text. This is some pretty hard work here, verse 23. Talks about guarding, keeping your heart. So my notes, I think I sent this to you. This, you can see my love for this text. I have, I think, a whole page of notes describing it. Keep your heart with all diligence. So guard your heart. Guard what comes into your heart. Guard your decisions. Guard it with diligence. It's hard work to keep your heart right. You keep your heart right. For out of it are the issues of life. So whatever is your heart's focus is going to flow out of your life. And if it's God, good stuff's going to flow out of your life. If it's self and sin, it's just going to fall out into your life. So keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are issues of life. I prayed for Trevor Lawrence. Who's Trevor Lawrence? Who cares? But Trevor Lawrence, he's a football player.
Last night, huh?
He's a quarterback.
I watched it on halftime and then I turned it off.
I was gonna say, he didn't show up.
He's a Clemson guy. We lived in Clemson. He bought a dog from our friends, the Vosbergs, a golden doodle.
The Vosbergs?
Yeah, the Vosbergs. So, you know the Vosbergs?
Yeah.
Which one? I'm scared to hear.
No,
Phil?
Isabel. I know their kids.
Other kids.
School with their
That's
kids.
hard to believe. Well, the father of all that, he owes me. He married a Dunn, Teresa Dunn. So Teresa came to me and said, I'm getting bad reports about this Vosberg guy. And I said, Teresa, I think he's a good guy. He's a diamond in the rough. I think he's a good guy. And so she dated him, married him. So they owe me. He owes me.
So what you're saying is most men are a diamond in the rough, but it doesn't mean.
There's hope is what that means. Most men are diamonds in the rough. If I had daughters, I'd say guys are what? Bad, and they're a diamond in the rough. And you gotta be careful. Because some will get polished up real good, but that's the exception. The Bosbergs, great family.
Just a side note, when our boys got married, I always liked one of my boys to take me down the aisle, because the mother gets seated and stuff. So I wanted them to do it. I would kiss them. Say, I've done everything. So typical. She's all yours.
Basically, you're saying there's no warranty on the.
We had no return policy. No return policy.
No warranty.
And we told our kids, marry that girl as fast as you can. Because we didn't want her to get to know our kids real well. So I said, strike with lightning force. And it worked in all three cases. And the girls have all come back to me and they've all said, we did not know. Why didn't you tell us? Well, sorry, sweetie. Too late now. You're stuck now. So yeah, diamonds in the rough. Okay. Now, with this lady theme, what you're going to see very strong at the end of chapter 4. And then into chapter 5.
Did you finish your story about Trevor Lawrence?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I was thinking Trevor Lawrence, he's a believer. And he was pretty neat. He served in his local church in Clemson. So if you went to his church, he was a greeter. So he was at one door, and next to him was ETN. So and Dabo Sweeney, yeah. So if you went to their church, hi, my name's Trevor. I'm ETN. It's a pretty neat guys. But I'm praying that all the fame and all the money and doesn't go to these guys' heads, that they'll live for God. They have a national platform, and that game was fantastic last night for Trevor. Worst half of his life, and then maybe the best half. Listen to his testimony afterwards, and it was faith in his players. Faith in one another over and over and over. So that's good. You need to trust your players. What about God? I wish you would say. So anyway, I'm praying twice, Trevor. Speak out. Talk a little bit more for God. Guard your heart. Guard your heart. Serve the Lord. Okay, last comments here for these 6 chapters, and we'll hammer this a little bit more. This is a father saying, guard your heart. And then immediately he talks about the wrong type of woman. And again, men can be the wrong type of men. So chapter 4, verse 24, he says, be really careful about your speech. And then watch out for these smooth talking people. And verse 25, let your eyes look right on, and that thine eyelids look straight before thee. The eye gate can bring in a lot of trouble to a man and to a woman. And so there's a text here saying, hey, look, make sure you're looking right. You're looking at the right things, pure ways, and be very, very careful. And in addition to that, ponder the path of your feet. Verse 26, you have a plan, and it's good to plan. God can change the plan and let him change it as he sees fit. But it's okay to ponder, plot out a plan, and then watch God direct you through that plan. But make sure that in that pursuit of God, you don't turn to the left or right to evil. Chapter 5, he now talks about the adulteress. And I think we'll come back and pick this up a little bit, but just to introduce it. He's trying to say, son, look, I'm going to give you some wisdom on this. Watch this thing unfold. You got to watch these traps, these enticements, and be very, very guarded in what you have discernment. And he says, verse 3, for the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. So she's a slick operator. She knows what she is saying, and it can really be very much a temptress. But if you understand that she's bad news, you'll stay away from her. But if you follow her, look at verse 4, her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. So you follow her, you'll go to your demise. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. Lest thou ponders the path of life, her ways are unmovable. She's unstable. And you can know them, you can see her instability and her outcome of her choices. So here's the advice, very strongly, verse 8, remove your way far from her and come not nigh the door of her house. So stay away from temptation. Don't go down by her street, stay away from her. And then he says, if you fall, here are the consequences, verses 9 and following. The consequences in this case of committing adultery, the son is married. The loss of honor, the loss of health, the loss of wealth, the loss of a job, loss of income there, verses 9 through 10. There's some pretty cruel consequences. Loss of emotional peace, loss of physical health, again, verse 11. So just a lot of warning. Hey, you don't want to go down this path. Be very, very guarded. So chapter 5. And then finally, chapter 6 is almost a repeat and a further development of this woman. And there's some other instructions. I'll just throw one out here in verse 1. It says, my son, if you shall be surety for your friend, if you have stricken your hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of your mouth, thou art taken with the words of your mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver yourself. Without coming to the hand of your friend, go humble yourself and make sure your friend. What's this topic about? And what's the instruction? Something that he's teaching and be very careful. And you can get into this right now in your stage of life very easily. So it's a financial topic. So what is it? Hey, look, my credit's not real good. Can you help me? Would you mind co-signing for me? I'd like to get this car. Would you mind co-signing? They won't let me buy it. And someone will look at their credit rating. Would you mind? You know, I promise you, I'll make the payments, and it's good, man. It's good, man. So the guy says, "Yeah, I'll co-sign it. Why not? You're my friend. I'll do that." And then he co-signs. Then what happens? What does the guy do? He defaults. He defaults. I guess who has to pay? You who signed for it. Okay. This is what Psalm is saying. He said, don't enter into those arrangements. Stay away from those. You're not going to like the outcome of it all. If you have, he said, you've already entered into one of these co-signing deals, you go to that guy, hopefully he is your friend, and get out of that arrangement as fast as you can. Okay. So don't get into these co-signing. I can't have power turned on, so I get someone, could you co-sign for me? So I get asked that regularly. Regularly, actually once every 20 years, but regularly every 20 years. It's been more than that. Pastor, can you co-sign for this car? Can you co-sign for this power? Can you co-sign for this purchase?
You sign for the storage.
Can you sign for the storage unit? I just had a storage unit for 2 years in my name within Arsenal. If anyone ever opens up that door, it had, you didn't see it, it had, if there was one gun in there, there was maybe 100 guns. 200 guns.
I thought you were talking about Bibles, like you open it up and you see like a whole bunch of them.
Well, it was near the young's house. When that fire came, it filled it up with ash from that fire, and it had over 200 rifles. So this guy was in a little bit of trouble with the police, and he said, Pastor, can you hide all my weapons and take your name? Yeah, that was the bottom line. That was the bottom line. He was in trouble. He was in trouble. I said, you know what? Okay, what's the worst that could happen to me? I can help you with this. This is, I'm just saying, you know, I'll take the risk and I'll pay for it. Just whatever, I'll pay if there's a problem.
Like, you at least keep the
You
counts.
counted
Bad.
I counted the cost. No, I didn't keep anything. And we finally cleared that he finally is in a better place before the whatever authorities, and he can get his guns back. But I did that for him. I did that for him. Usually when I'm asked to co-sign, I'll say, how much money do you need? I need $500. Okay. Why don't we just keep it to 500? I don't want to co-sign. We'll just give you the money for it. You go do whatever and pay me when you can.
Do they ever pay you when they can?
No,
Yeah, we carry it on our monthly financial
we do. We have
reports.
the debts. We have the debts people owe us. But you know, but from a biblical viewpoint, you know, there are times you give loans. When you give a loan, what's your expectation? What should it be?
Never getting it back.
Yeah. So that you have to start with that. If you have paid, that's a blessing. In case you have been paid, 1 out of 100. I mean, they pay, but that's fine, because when you lend to the poor, who are you lending to?
God.
To God. What does God do? He makes the payments, and usually it's really with good interest. So there are times, you do these things, but stay away from the coastline. Be careful of that. Unless you want to pay for someone's car that he destroys. I've seen people do that and just ruin their own credit and ruin their own finances. It's really stupid. So if you get thrown into one of those situations, remember the text and also say, hey, look, I'll pray on how we can help you. We get a little counsel on this. And they're going to say, well, that's fine, but I need the money. When? It's today or yesterday. I don't have time to wait. Well, I'm sorry, I can't have anything that gets me counsel like that. I need to talk to my pastor. I have a friend I'd like to bounce this off of. Just pray. No, sorry, I don't have time to wait for you. Okay, well, I really can't. So be careful. It's almost giving you wisdom to navigate these things. Save you a lot of heartache. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll pick things up in chapter 7 through 12 next week. Read ahead, discuss it. It's my rights. Okay, let's break here. And pray for me. I couldn't find my sermon this morning. This has never happened. This never happened. I was up pretty early at 4:45. Went down my study, prayed a little bit, and I got on my computer. I could not find my sermon. My computer ate it. It's my dog. I mean, totally.
Bang.
I mean, I looked at recent. I mean, everywhere. And then if you're a computer guru, I don't know why that thing went. This has never happened before. Please don't tell stories. I'm just telling stories. What, honey?
We like stories.
I shifted my message. At least it says, can you preach on that passage? And I probably could, because I studied reasonably well. I just had no liberty. And I said, well, maybe God, there's a reason I can't find my sermon. And as I was meditating on that, I think there was a reason. So I shifted my message. Preparation for next week. Next week is the Asian New Year, Chinese New Year, the Year of the Rabbit. And I've got a great service and a lunch afterwards. So stay with us for lunch. And we also need some help cleaning up the gym right after lunch. So if you'd like to help us, that'd be fantastic. But, pray for our outreach to our Asian friends. I have a great picture of Eunice Bryant this morning. Don't tell her, or she won't come to church. It's horrible. It is.
Oh, is it from the race?
No, not the race. By the way, congratulations on that rain, that torrential tsunami.
It was fun.
Did anyone see their pictures? I mean, the water. How did you run in that?
Timothy was like dragging my mother and I the whole time. So
Was it a half marathon?
yeah, that was
I thought
Where?
it was a half.
It was
Nice.
But the water was outside of San Francisco, was it? Or where were you?
we were like 10 minutes away from us. Or no, it was in the city right over from us. We were, and then it was like the city like 10 minutes.
You need to see the pictures. The water is, 6 inches, a foot, 2 feet.
It was wild. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah.
Bro, I would start swimming at like 2 feet mark.
No, like a bunch of the people who like contacted us, they're like, oh, so let's have a triathlon.
You guys were awesome. I have a picture of your mom's not gonna like it. Don't.
Oh yes.
She is not gonna like this. But she is, yeah. Well, that's right. Lord, thanks for our time here together. Thank you for our class, all the challenges we each face, and help us to trust in you and not lean upon our own understanding of your purposes and plans. So help us to sweetly and quickly surrender and follow you by faith. Help us to acknowledge you and the understanding you will direct our paths in what we should do in life. So I pray you protect us from evil, deliver us from these horrific enticements that the world throws at us, and help us to take the right pathway in life that pleases you. Bless now this morning's service, and we do pray for the Asian New Year next week, that we have a good number of visitors. The gospel will be very clear as Brother Musgrave preaches. Bless this morning's service as well. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.